Are you dreading Warhammer after the latest balanced data slate? Are you constantly on Reddit quivering in fear of the new orcs? Well, fear not, I am here for you. Guys, I have played this detachment quite a bit, and I have all the ideas that you need to handle more Daka. Everyone's scared of it, but there's a lot of ways to deal with this. Let's get into it. So this video, we're going to talk about More Dakka. I am going to go through the problems they present. I'm going to go through some of the enhancements and the stress that they have that are causing problems. I'm not going to talk about all of them because honestly, most of them are not issues. I'm going to talk about what problems can you solve in your gameplay, what it likes, what it hates, and I'm going to use TTS to actually demonstrate real-time strategies of how to play against this specific detachment right now. Guys, I want you to become a much better Warhammer player. I want you to be able to problem solve and be able to fix all the issues that are going to pop up in the meta on your own. So that's what I do here on this channel. I try to teach you how to think tactically and strategically and to solve the problems. Now, the big question everyone has and what the entire internet is raging over is they are screaming about how busted More Dakka is. Well, how busted is it? And honestly, guys, you're not going to want to hear it. It's not that busted. It's actually not busted at all. There's literally one interaction that is probably a little broken. And besides that, the rest of it is totally fine. So it does a lot of damage, but the damage actually is not nearly what everyone is crying and screaming about on Reddit. They're wrong. I've ran the math, and I'll have another video posted for you guys, hopefully today, that demonstrates all the mathematics on exactly what happens. And so let's just get into this thing. I want to talk real quick about the problems that it presents, and then I'm going to talk about some of the enhancement strats, and we'll go from there. So what are the big problems that we're presenting with? First problem, guys, is fear. When you see the thing that all of the orcs in this detachment that are infantry and walkers get sustained hits too, you go, holy crap, how is that even possible? The damage is going to be absolutely insane. But when we run the math, and if you haven't seen my math video, I'll make sure I link it somewhere. Honestly, the math, the damage is good. It does deal good damage, but it's not even close to what people are screaming about on Reddit. So it does possibly have the highest damage potential in the game, but there's a big difference between average and realistic in what potential is, right? There is a huge problem, however, in the amount of fear it inspires into its opponents. So if you are scarified of the threat ranges, if you're terrified of the damage that they can do, you're going to move less confidently and you're going to let them take the board state. If this army takes the board state against you, they're going to win. You cannot let them freely take the board state. So you almost have to not respect them, even though you do have to respect them. So one of the big issues, another very big issue, is the turn 1 movement block with Zodgrod Wartsnaga. So Zodgrod Wartsnaga has a ability that he has a 9-inch scout move, and then what this particular detachment does is it allows you to put 1 unit in the WA in your command phase. So that's going to give Zodrog a movement of 12 inches. All of his Gretchen are always -1 to be wounded. They're +1 to hit and +1 to wound. And then they get to advance and charge with a 5-up invulnerable save turn 1. This leads to the biggest move block city in the world. And we're going to talk specifically about the scenario and how to fix it. If you are standing on circles and you're within 18 inches of Ludas and characters, you're dead. So you have to be really careful about measuring your threat lines, your threat ranges, and where you're standing. There is a huge combo when we combine certain stratagems together where we can ignore cover and we can be +1 AP. That combo is very damaging, but it can only be used in one place. This army also has a very high amount of mobility from 1 unit a turn or the entire army during the WA turn, because in this army, when they WA, not only do they get to advance and charge like normal orcs, they also get to advance and shoot. That can be a big issue. So you got to watch these problems. The fear it inspires, the damage potential they have, the move block from Zodgrod, where you're positioned, because positioning is really important against this army. And then you got to understand that they do have a good combo that can kind of pop off, but it does cost 2 CP to do it. And this is a very high CP demanding detachment, so they're probably not going to always have those 2 CP. So let's talk about some of the enhancements and strats. First off, you don't need to worry about any of the enhancements. None of them matter at all. They're just kind of cute, slight damage buffs. So just don't worry about them. However, there's one strat that can give access to fallback and shoot, which is kind of okay, but whatever. They have some really good strats that you have to be aware of. One, like I just talked about what they're going to do with Zodrog. They're going to be able to put a unit into the WA without having to declare the WA. This would allow for all sorts of interactions, which all sound way too strong, and none of them are, except for the Zodrog interaction, okay? Then you have the combo of strats that I spoke about. You have one strat, which is you get to ignore cover on a unit for the entire army, but that unit does need to be within 18 inches of a character. So the orcs do have to come to you in order to use all of their good toys. Then they have another strat for +1 AP on one unit as long as it is the closest enemy unit within 18 inches. So you got to watch out for that. If you think that orcs, oh, the low AP, everything, well, we can boost up the AP and ignore cover on one of your units. So we can focus fire down the unit that needs to get focus fire down. And then lastly, they have a really interesting stratagem that will give them reroll wound rolls of 1 or full wound rerolls when you're on the objective. This only works in the fight phase, so don't worry, it doesn't work in the shooting phase. That would be over the top. But this does allow for certain things, like it allows for the beast boss, who's leading beast snaggers, to actually be able to reroll wound rolls, making sure that he can do maximum devastating wounds because he has the anti-monster vehicle 4-up and devastating wounds keywords. So you can actually deal more damage in melee than you might expect. Of course, you can only do that on one unit, and there is no sustained hits in melee, so the melee is generally much weaker in this detachment, but due to this stratagem, they can up the ante a little bit in certain scenarios. Okay. So we spoke about the enhancements and the strats. I've spoken about the problems. What are the big weaknesses of the army? Well, first off, they've got 0 defense. And when I say 0 defense, man, these guys have no defense. Like there's nothing at all. It's T5 bodies with a 5-up armor save and 1 wound. Your tank busters have a 4-up armor save and 2 wounds. That's the defense, okay? It doesn't get better than that. So what you have to understand is at any point in time when the orcs expose themselves to shoot you, and they do have good shooting, I'm not going to shy away from how powerful the shooting is, they will instantly die on the swing back, okay? You also, I want you to remember that they only get their sustained hits too in the shooting phase. So they do not get sustained hits too in Overwatch, and they do not get sustained hits too when they're using their stratagem to shoot back at you, which is why I didn't mention that stratagem as a problem, simply because if you ever shoot the orcs, they're going to die anyway. So they won't even be able to use the stratagem, which isn't that good anyway. They are also slaves to dice. Now, every single time you play them, I'm sure you're only going to remember the amount of 6s that your opponent rolls, and you're never going to remember all the bad dice that they roll. But if they do not roll 6s, they literally do nothing. So they have to roll 6s. And in this particular army, there's no real rerolls to fish for those sustained hits. The only unit that can actually accurately fish for sustained hits, 6s, is going to be Ludas when they're shooting a unit that is on an objective, because then they will get full rerolls to hit. However, mind you, they only have a ballistic skill of 6, so they only hit on 6s, and 6s will be critical hits for them, which is hilarious when you think about what the damage potential is, but the actual damage tends to be a lot lower than you might expect, although it's still pretty high when they pop off on the objectives. Outside of that, the only access to rerolls orcs are going to have is if they're attached to a big mech, which is a character, then they're going to get to reroll hit rolls of 1. But that's it. That's the only other access to rerolls besides the Ludas when they're shooting units on objectives. So like I said, they're very positionally dependent. The Ludas are only really frightening if they just happen to roll nothing but 6s, or if they get to fish for 6s because you're standing on an objective. Outside of that, you really just don't care. It's going to be strength 8, AP 1, damage 2. It's just not that scary, to be honest with you. Then they are extremely vulnerable to any anti-infantry. So if you happen to have any anti-infantry gun at all, if you've got a Reaper, if you've got double storm cannon Telemon, anything that is just, if you're playing AdMech and you have those stupid freaking Dune crawlers with or Dune riders with the twin linked stubbers that have like 20 million shots, those will cleave through orcs. Melee pressure is actually a very big problem into this army as well if you get into their lines, because they have no access to fall back and shoot outside of the one enhancement. So they got one access, which is going to be one enhancement, which they probably won't take. So let's talk about in depth on some of these problems, and I'm going to show you on TTS how we're actually going to position for it. How to handle Zodkrod. This is the problem that actually kind of breaks the detachment. If this problem didn't exist, I don't think there would be any issues with this detachment at all once people get a few reps into them, because the damage isn't what people are screaming about. None of the other mobility threats, which are really nice, aren't breaking the game at all. This is the problem, and you can handle it, but you have to handle it in the list building step, okay? Here's the reality. If you're playing into More Dakka, you must have an infiltration unit blocking unit or a scout blocker. You probably want two if you can manage it. Now, for me personally, I think if you're playing in this meta with no infiltrators, you're a freaking psychopath. You need infiltrators in the current meta. Between striking scorpions for Eldar, scouts for Space Marines, Piranha Scout moves for freaking Tau, for what are the Pioneers or what are the Bikers are for your Votan to Zodgrod. You must be able to stop scout moves. You must be able to block infiltrations. You just have to have those things. So if you don't have them, honestly, you're probably going to auto lose to this detachment. So take them. All right. I generally would not bother overwatching this big unit, because if you do, you're not going to kill enough to make it really matter for the move block they're going to put you through. This unit will move block your entire army turn 1, and I'm about to show you exactly how they're doing it. So if you have an overwatching unit, don't do it. Don't waste your CP unless it happens to be like, oh, I don't know, 10 Pyroblasters. Maybe that would do it. But even then, it's just you're -1 to wound the models you're shooting, and they have a 5 invulnerable save, and there's 20 freaking 2 of them. So it's like, I don't know if it's really going to make that big a difference. So his threat range is scout move 9, 12-inch move, plus D6 for the advance, plus a charge. It is insane how far he goes. He goes 21 inches before he advances turn 1. Now, this is, of course, if he goes first. If he goes second, he'll just scout into a ruin that's safe, and then in his turn, you'll put him in the wall, and he'll move 12 plus D6, and he'll just get wherever he needs to go. You also really want to be careful about the actual damage the unit does, because Zodgrod himself will get +1 to hit and +1 to wound, which makes him a big problem. He's a bit of a character assassin. I have killed Abaddon with him turn 1 before, so just be aware of that. And the squad was also able to clear light skirmishing squads quite effectively. So I'm going to go to the TTS screen now, and I'm going to show you how it moves, and I'm going to show you exactly how to block it, okay? Here we go. All right. So first off, what I've laid here is I have your Zodgrod Wartsnaga with the Gretchen laid out. Actually, I'm just going to move these for right now because I want to show you the threat that it can actually do if you don't block it. All right, so basically, here's the thing. Orcs are arrayed against some Blood Angels. And on this particular map, like, this is actually a great place for vehicles to move through. Vehicles, you're going to stage Sanguinary Guard, whatever. So I'm going to show you exactly what Zodgrod Wartsnaga does if he goes first. All right, I go first. I'm going to scout forward 9 inches. I'm just going to move 9 inches. Yeah, I understand. I can't stand inside the wall. Just breathe, relax. Pretend these guys are moved back. I'm just doing this so I can demonstrate how it works, okay? All right, fine. Then after that, since I'm in the wall, because I'm going to spend 1 CP in my command phase to put them in the wall, they get to now move 12 inches plus a D6 roll. Now I'm going to use a roll of a 3 because that is the average roll for an advance. So they're basically going to get to go another 15 inches. So I'm going to put this little fella right here. And I don't care if you overwatch me because you do not have enough to kill me. But you can try it. You can try it. Here's 15. Here's 15. I'll put one herd right here. And then I'm just going to do like this. Boom. Boom. Let's do some stuff like this. These guys can go all the way over here. All the way here. I can even come over here. Over here. And now I have effectively completely move blocked the entire army. So in your turn 1, and if you're going to ask me for coherency, yes, I'm in coherency, see? No problem. It's easily in coherency. This guy's right here. He's within 2. This guy's within 2. No problem. It's coherent, so I don't want to hear that in the comments. So now my opponent's Blood Angels, he basically doesn't get a turn 1. He can't move. This is as far as he gets to move. Let me see if I can just turn this off. There we go. So... and I'll just put the deployment zones up again. There's no way for him to get through. This guy doesn't get to move. Now, in this case, Zodgrod wouldn't charge because the Sanguinary Guard would heroic and fight. But in any other case, he would probably charge and just wrap up all the tanks turn 1 as well. And once again, I just don't care if you shoot me because this Ball Predator is going to kill, like, probably that many Gretchen. Because I get a 5 of invulnerable save and a -1 to be wounded. So that really changes nothing here. So they just don't care. So you cannot allow this to happen, okay? So let me just reset this real fast. I'm just going to put Zodgrod squad back here again. I'm just going to do this fast. It's going to be a little bit of a mesh up. Yeah, I don't care, blah, 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 blah. This is how you want to block it. And this is how you'll have to block it. Okay? I'm going to take 2 squads of scouts, and I'm just going to basically place them roughly right here. There we go. They're going to start exactly 9 inches away from the line. Now, if Zodgrod goes first, he gets to scout here. He gets to scout here. You need the second squad here, because if you don't have the second squad here, let me just move them out of the way. Dagnabbit. Let's just move them out of the way. If you don't have that second squad here, then Zod is just going to move like this, and then he'll move like that. And then they'll still do the advance and charge over here, or the advance, and they'll still be able to block basically all this movement anyway. So you really, really need the 2 squads. And it might sound like a lot, but the reality is you're using 140 points to block 160 points. So now Zodgrod does not get to scout for it at all. So if Zodgrod does go first, he'll just kill scouts, which at least allows you to get out of your deployment zone. And then these guys are going to be, I mean, you're going to have them positioned somehow, so at least you could save them, so they could scout back here. And this squad's probably going to have to be a sacrificial angel, right? But you accept that this unit dies, but it allows you to move in your turn 1. That's what's so freaking important about this game. You have to block it. Okay, so that's enough about Zodgrod. If you don't block it, you don't move turn 1, and you basically just auto-lose. Let me just switch back to the PowerPoint view, and we'll zoom through the rest of this. All right, so that is Monsieur Zodgrod. Next problem. How are you going to deal with the pressure? This list is a shooting pressure list, and it operates much like a melee pressure list that you've seen from several of my other videos, okay? It wants to overwhelm in one turn. They can trade fire a little bit, but they really want to overwhelm their opponents. You cannot succumb to the fear of how much damage they do, because if you allow them to grab board presence, here's what they're going to do. They will move up, and they will stage. And once they've moved up to stage, they're going to say, it is your turn. And they're going to allow you to expose 1 or 2 key units. And then they're just going to kill those 1 or 2 key units. But if you don't expose anything, then they're going to say, no problem. I'm just going to move forward and I'm going to stage. And they're going to wait for you to kill 1, 2 trucks. They don't care if you kill 1 or 2 trucks. And then in their turn, they're going to walk and they're going to advance and shoot everything in the army. And they're going to kill over 1,000 points of your army instantaneously. You cannot allow that to happen. You have to force them to expose their units before they're ready to expose their units. You have to maybe advance and charge, get a unit in their back line to tag up a bunch of their squads. You have to go for the 8-inch charge that can kill the truck and then pile into the units that come out of it, forcing your opponent to fall back and deal with the unit that ended up charging. If you don't do these things and you just sit back and play a passive game, this list will 100% steamroll you. You need your own move blockers, your own screeners. If you go first with those scouts, you want to advance them forward and say the Dakka Orks don't get to move turn 1 while you take board presence. If you don't have access to scouts, you have striking scorpions. If you don't have access to striking scorpions, you have Jaegers if you're for the Votan. Almost, I know not every, but almost every army has access to infiltrators. You need them. They're very, very important. If you're playing Emperor's Children, you can do it. If you're playing World Eaters, you got to make it happen. You have to be able to probably pull. You might actually, for the first time in your life, do the turn 1 charge and try to guarantee that your opponent at least fails a few leadership tests so that they can't fall back. Now, I'm not saying that is 100% what you're going to do, but you need to, if you don't do that, you need to grab board presence where you can't be shot in the follow-up turn 1. Then the next thing you need to know is you need to recognize when it's okay to be shot. There are so many. Let me show you on this board again, okay? I'm going to show you on this board state again. The angles that these orcs can take are absolutely bonkers, all right? No matter what you do, something's going to be shot. This truck can move up 12 inches, just like this, and then he can get guys out like within 3 inches that can go just like this, and then they will be able to take a line, and they might be able to shoot something here. Let's say that they can just barely clip you. Actually, I hit it pretty well here, but that's how far they move. They actually move really dang far. So you have to make sure that you're either completely hidden or you don't care if you get shot. My Ballistus Dreadnought probably doesn't care if he gets shot here right now, because if the Ludas get out to probably try to kill my Ballistus Dreadnought who's not on an objective, they won't kill him, and then I get to shoot him for free in my turn. So I just don't care about getting shot from this angle. If it's Tank Busters and the Tank Busters want to get out and shoot my Ballistus Dreadnought, maybe they kill him, but they probably don't, because the math still says probably not. And then I get to kill his Tank Busters for free. So in this scenario, I'm actually totally okay with him shooting my Ballistus Dreadnought. I'm not okay with him shooting my Sanguinary Guard. So you have to choose what you're okay with your opponent shooting and what you're not okay with your opponent shooting, because there will be angles. If I take this truck and I go, I don't know, let's say it starts here, and I go 12 inches with him, he's going to be able to take this angle. Guys, I know I can't stand on a move on a model. I'm just using this to demonstrate right now. If I take this angle here and I get my Ludas out, I'll be able to kill this thing probably. And if I don't kill it, I'll be able to damage it severely. You as the player have to be okay with something being hit, because if you play completely 100% safe and you're all the way back here, you're never going to grab the board. You have to be willing to trade and understand that anything that he disembarks from his truck also instantly dies. And your units are a heck of a lot more durable than the Orc players' units are. So don't be afraid to get shot, as long as you don't want to be on an objective, and you want to make sure that if the tank busters do expose themselves, that you can 100% wipe them on the way back. All right, that is just 100% freaking key. Now I'm going to go back to the PowerPoint, and we'll start wrapping this bad boy up, okay? How to deal with the pressure. So we talked about how to deal with pressure, and what are the armies that are naturally countering these orcs. So your Chaos Knights and your Imperial Knights are the two big ones. So like I said, I'll release the math video later, but Ludas need both strats, so the +1 AP, the ignore cover, and they need a big mech with shock attack gun leading them, and they need to be shooting a War Dog on an objective in order to kill the War Dog. And this is assuming the War Dog doesn't give themselves a 4 invulnerable save, or the Armiger, or whatever. Because then you're just like, you're hoping dice. It's going to be roughly 50-50. If they don't do it, then you should kill them in that, if you do that. But that's stacking 2 CP on a unit led by a character that is going to be costing 175 points and 2 CP to kill a 165 to a 140 point model. So it's not a good trade for the orcs. They do not kill you if you're not standing on an objective. Tank busters kill you when they activate their pulse rockets, and they don't kill you when they don't activate their pulse rockets. So they only do it on the one activation. This expands to basically apply to all T10 plus heavy armies. So if you're playing Gunline Marines, Tank Spam Guard, this is a big issue. AdMech is actually a big problem for the orcs, especially if they're the Skitarii Hunter cohort, because they have the -1 to be hit stealth keyword. So your Ludas, even if they remain stationary, they're always only going to be hitting on 6s. Doesn't matter what happens. There's no, even their +1 to hit, they're still hitting on 6s now. Your Dune Riders will clear a unit of Ludas. All those starvers that come out with sustained hits and twin linked will just wreck orc bodies. So they actually deal crazy damage into it. And not to mention, AdMech have their own super fast move blocking units. Other pregame heavy armies actually have a good play into these orcs as well. We're talking about World Eaters, we're talking about Eldar, and we're considering playing your Emperor's Chosen or your Emperor's Children. The Emperor's Children, I'm unsure of just because I don't have the real experience with it, but they have a ton of infiltration and scout moves. I'm tempted to say it's actually not the worst matchup, but seriously, I could be completely wrong on that. I accept it if I am. Like I said, I just don't have enough experience with the Emperor's Children yet. World Eaters, while, yeah, they're afraid of the damage that the Dakka Orks do, if World Eaters get the go turn where they get to slam their army into it, it's a huge problem for Dakka. There's no response that they can have. So guys, this is how you're going to counter them. Be on the lookout for my next video where I will absolutely break down all the mathematics of it. So for example, this is the math of the Ludas here, where I've done the damage of how much damage do Ludas do into these targets when they're shooting a unit on an objective with rapid fire. How much damage is it when I also have the strat stacked? How much damage is it when I also have a leader with them? I've done it for Ludas, Flash Gits, Tank Busters. I'm going to go through all of that for you. And if you want access to these sheets, I have it posted in the members Discord. So if you're a paying supporter, then you have access to the members Discord. You can go download these sheets right now. Guys, this is how you're going to handle Dakka. You must be able to take the board. You must have infiltrators to block the Zodgrod. If you don't, honestly, you'll just auto lose. The Zodgrod is the problem with the detachment. They probably need to fix the detachment just by saying, you know what, it costs 2 CP for the stratagem to put a unit in the wall. If they do that, honestly, I think the detachment's good and it's totally fine and it's a totally fair detachment. That one ability to put Zodgrod turn 1 like that is pretty close to busted. But everything else is basically good, and as long as you play smart, you will be totally fine and you'll be able to handle it. So with that, I'm going to end it, and I'll catch up with you guys in another video, math video, hopefully later tonight. Just depends on if I have the endurance to do it. So with that, crump on, baby, and have a good one. Bye-bye.